Alright, we're gonna go check out this temple. It's called Mount Glennon, but it's definitely not a mountain. And it's a part of what they call Dinosaur Ridge in Morrison, Colorado, which is right next to Red Rocks, which I believe Red Rocks is an ancient temple as well. You'll be able to see the meticulous destruction that went on and took place there as we go up. I'll try to take as much video as I can. You can see remnants of the flood as we go all the way up. And I would assume that the flood towered over this whole ridge, that's what they call Dinosaur Ridge right there, which I believe is an entire temple, just because that is the same as this whole piece that goes along this ridge. And you'll see what I'm talking about when we get up there. This is where we get to the rock path, which seems to me that it was a part of something before the last reset, like 2 resets ago. Just for the fact that the blocks are pretty large in size, as well as during that time period they were much more natural than using wood or railroad ties or railroad construction to build some steps. We'll walk up some of these steps. The large megalithic rocks don't start until you're about this high. But I think it's just from the fact of the flood. And you'll see what I'm saying when we get there. But what I want to say is that the flood happened after the blocks were sliced and burned. Then the flood came. And when I'm saying slices, you can see they've sliced the rock, and as we get up here before this destruction, and you'll see the remnants. This is a remnants of a fire, something so hot like nuclear, of something burning the surface of that rock, because it's only going to be on the surface sides. As far as on the interior of this temple, you're not going to see that burning effect like that, where it has weathered from the water. So as we get closer into the temple, you'll see it. You can see red rocks over there, which I believe is another temple. See, my theory is that all the Colorado mountains were an ancient forest, such as that one, and it was an ancient tree. And there's remnants of these ancient trees all along the coast of the Colorado mountains, and they look like trees. They're stumps. They look like stumps. I mean, you can see a lot of them. Like they just couldn't destroy them all. They couldn't tear them all down. Like, I don't know if you've ever tried to. Alright, so here's the beginning of the really large megalithic blocks that were used to build this amazing temple. And it's just devastating what has happened here. I can't really explain what happened. I try to piece it together in my mind, and I'm still questioning. So there's Red Rocks again, the Red Rocks Amphitheater, and I believe the amphitheater was a part of that large temple that they destroyed. The temple was left over, the amphitheater was left over, so they just kind of, do what they normally do, is reconstruct as much as they can to say, we built this, out of these rocks, but as far as my guess would be that it was a gigantic temple, just like this dinosaur ridge, amongst the giant trees, and the amphitheater inside Red Rocks was already there. All right, here's where it gets kind of sketchy, but you'll see that the steps have been made on top of this rubble with large rocks, suggesting something prior to the last reset. Here is one of the megalithic blocks. You can see the meticulous effort that went into destroying this building, and as we get closer, I'll show you even more. Looks like they've done a pretty good job at masking it and lying to us, but I would say that the flood happened very recently, just from the fact that that's what all the trees are here from. It would have to be a couple hundred years ago that this land was flooded, just under complete destruction. And you'll see what I'm saying as we get up there. More of the stone steps. Once you understand what has happened here, your heart kind of sinks. There are these drill marks, and I'm not quite sure what they are. I mean, they could be carbon dating, highly doubted, but on some of the blocks as we get higher and higher, as you see here, I'm sorry, as you see here, you can see them down here. There's a little debris, enough to say maybe the flood, but probably not. But it could have been used for the construction of this temple, you know? These blocks broke up, and then some next civilization came and used those broken blocks to build all of these steps that lead up multiple ways. This place is really cool. It's called Mount Glennon in Colorado. Just the most amazing place. But Dinosaur Ridge, this is all one single piece. They blew it up for the highway, but as you can see, that means this is one gigantic temple that has been utterly destroyed. And I'm talking like a landslide of something pushing up on it. And we're talking remnants of, like I said, all over the ground, the flood of the sand. This is like bedrock. I've grown up in lakes and rivers, you know. So pretty interesting, because that means the destruction was relatively recent. You can begin to see, like, this is remnants of water, like something sitting underwater. Like, as far as the texture, you can see, yeah, there it goes. You can see the texture here is something like you'd find in the water, but as we get closer, you'll see that things have been melted. We're getting closer to the inside of it. You can see the water erosion that has happened and taken course over time during the flood, which I would say the complete blocks were, the whole thing was flooded. The whole area was full of water very recently. You can literally see the machine that has been used to cut the blocks, which was most likely a water cannon. I don't know, it could have been a laser as well. As we come along here, you can see this. Something has been, it almost looks like a water cannon. You can look them up on YouTube, and they're used to cut things. So as we get closer, you'll see that the reason that they made so many cuts is because you're not going to be able to get the softest spot the first try. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what you're cutting into, especially with this. It looks like they constructed this rock out of crystal and something else. But if you were to go to cut into that, some of the spots are going to be super hard. Some of them are going to be a little softer. So what has happened is they have tried, you can see, they've cut into that rock, and then they've cut into that rock, and then they cut into that rock, and they've done this. And here's more of the tool mark. You'll see the tool mark right here. It's been, it was too hard up here, right? So they went a little lower, and and eventually they were able to cut this, right? Well, we come under here, and that is not water erosion. That is remnants of a fire underneath here. This one cut smooth, and as you see, it has this glaze that looks like it's burned. The only way that glaze could have happened is in a kiln or whatever they call it. And the evidence is so clear of what has happened to this temple, because as I explained, that tool, they couldn't get through right here. It was too hard. The material was taking too long, so they said, we'll go up a few inches. Bam. They were able to go up a few inches, and then there you go. The whole slab came apart. And then you have that fire, that glaze. And that fire is so evident on the interior of this part right here. This is what I call the interior of the temple, just because this wall is still standing here, and I call it the interior just because there's two sides to it, but the other side has obviously taken its toll. But you'll see the evidence of what I'm saying about that tool over and over and over. You couldn't get more clear right here. There's the evidence. This stuff was just way too hard over here. They said, fuck it, cut the other one. Go down a little bit further. So they said, go down a little further. And next thing you know, that rock came apart. This whole temple came falling down. And I'm talking recent. Look how recent those tool marks look. Look how recent. I mean, as far as you could easily burn that, and then there's your patina from what the burn would be. I would say there's even remnants of the tool, like some calcium that they're using. We're being lied to. There's one more glance at Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado. You'll see that the whole thing has been just pushed. And that is gigantic, that whole area. Those aren't little. And the whole temple is of this red rock. And I would say maybe it was built out of the rock during once upon a time. Who knows? But they definitely used different styles of rock in the construction of this ancient temple. Let's see one of the megalithic blocks here. It just goes up. It's got the texture of just normal rainfall. Definitely interesting. I mean, the most amazing place, they tell us it's Mount Glennon, some hiking trails. But this is an ancient temple, and I don't even know how ancient. I mean, it could be, for all we know, 500 years old. You know, I would say even the trees. You say, how old is the land? And you say, well, how old are the trees? And then you look at the entire land, and it's not that old. You know, trees are only a couple hundred years old at best. And that tree's not even that. And it's on the side of this structure, which means it grew since we have came along. You know? Well, if that's the case, then that tree hasn't been there for very long. Meaning, what the hell really happened here? You know, they tell us this whole story. Bullshit. And here we go. You know, we have this temple. There's the wall of the temple right there. You can't mistake it. It's a part of the temple, of this whole structure, and then the whole ridge is here. Maybe the government doesn't like what I'm saying. Sent the copter out. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. Look at this place. There's remnants of this being cut as well. And now, this looks so fresh that I'm not quite sure if, you know, someone's been paid to cut these blocks to make them safer. I highly doubt it, but I mean, you can see the remnants of the machine, of the chemical that's used in those water cannons. You know, it's not just straight water. They put stuff that can eat the rock. And you see it as I back up. You have all the remnants of that chemical being used to cut that. Now, like I said, it's not quite the same, but monkey see, monkey do, right? This will be the last video on this structure. And I just wanted to add this little piece. You can just see the amount of destruction that has taken place with this structure. A meticulous cutting of everything before, just like they do now when they tear down a skyscraper. Cut the blocks, blow that shit up, and you see the remnants of this. This destruction of these blocks. And just stacked. And see how giant they were, though. Just massive columns. And this is in Colorado, America. This is littered upon the entire land of the world. I've been all across America this year. And you see the same construction in every city. They found all those cities. And just recently, we've been placed here. By who or what? As far as this destruction looks deliberate. Now, that's not God's doing, you know? God's not gonna come down here and slice rocks. Now, he might make the land flood, but at this point in my mind, I don't even know if that's true. We've been fed so much of a lie that so many questions still need to be answered. just the size of this place. It just goes on like the Great Wall of China. So what it reminds me of. Because this is just a part of it. This is just a piece to that. And this is where I sit and pray. It's just a part of the whole structure. I mean, this is just blip. They were giant temples at the base of the giant trees where we lived in harmony. Which makes me think that the firmament is artificial. They cut down the trees so they could fit the dome over the top. And then when they fit the dome over the top, it flooded and it started to rain. They say in the days before Noah, it never rained. And it only began to rain after Noah built the boat, and henceforth it has rained. But before that, it did not rain. But as far as the trees, the reference of the trees being cut is in the book of Enoch, and you can find it there, that the fallen angels cut the trees down before Enoch's time, and said they cut down all the trees except for the 14 trees. But who knows where those 14 trees are at, if those are the size of the trees, those are the size of the roots.